All right, and here we go. Hey, good Tuesday morning. It's Thursday. Take two. Good Thursday morning, everyone. This is August 6th, 2020. I'm Clayton Morris. Welcome into Morning Invest, the only morning business news show for the real Americans, not the Wall Street types. On the show today, we're going to be talking about the very latest on the stimulus package and why we're taking one step forward, three steps back. The White House wants a deal by tomorrow. Will it happen? We'll tell you what the biggest sticking points are on today's show. We're also going to be talking about some good news on COVID-19. And while you will not see this on the mainstream media, you know, if you flip on CNN or Fox News or any of those mainstream media channels, you're going to see like a ticker on the right-hand side that's going to show you how many deaths, which is a number that we should all be caring about. But they're not going to tell you about some of the good news around COVID-19, and we'll tell you what's happening about that. There are still some hot spots, of course, and outbreaks, but we're going to tell you why doctors are starting to see a shift and how this could be a good thing as we enter the fall of the year. We're going to tell you the 5 things that you need to know to start your day in the headlines, and we will be deep diving all of that on today's show. If you're new here, thank you so much for subscribing to the channel and smashing that like button. My co-host Grover is standing by. My 6-month-old little baby Golden Nugget mini pincher is here, and he wants to remind you to please subscribe to our morning newsletter. Subscribe to our morning newsletter. It's totally free, delivered to your inbox first thing in the morning. Our goal is to have that in your inbox by 8 a.m. Eastern time, totally free. If you go to morninginvest.com, and you can read it in about 5 minutes over your cup of coffee. Let me know in the chat today how many of you received your newsletter. Hopefully it hit your inbox. We've made some big changes on the newsletter that Grover is super happy with. So thank you for subscribing. All right, I do want to start this morning and get to the 5 things that you need to know to start your day. Let's dive into your headlines. And we're going to start this morning with Beirut and the very latest as the people there start to pick up the pieces. Absolute devastation. It's really amazing, honestly, what one blast can do to a country. And words right now, folks, of revolution are filling the streets of Lebanon from coast to coast in Lebanon right now. And Emmanuel Macron, the French president, came to Beirut yesterday. He walked the streets, the blast-damaged streets of Beirut, swarmed by people chanting for the fall of Lebanon's government and pleading, begging for international aid right now. You know why this all matters? When you watch this blast, folks, and this entire port is just devastated. When you see what this looked like, here's the whole entire port destroyed. Upwards of $5 billion, 100 people dead in Beirut as a result of this blast. And look, the economy was already on a Venezuela-like trajectory. 100 people dead, thousands wounded, many more displaced, billions of dollars required to fix all of this up. They're saying about 250,000 people were left without homes. Can you imagine? Imagine what that would look like in the United States. 250,000 people without homes. Well, we can imagine it as we face this eviction moratorium in the country, of course. But take a look at this after the blast. This was before and after satellite photos of the blast area of where the port is. And see all those warehouses down there where they had retained some ammonium nitrate from a Russian cargo ship a number of years ago. And now members of that port have been arrested, and they are behind bars as the Lebanese government tries to figure out what happened and why this was so mismanaged down at the port. But again, this country was already on the brink, and now there could be calls for a wholesale move to throw out this entire government after this blast. Revolution. All it took was this one blast to could change this entire region, folks. It's really remarkable. Unbelievable. It's like the start of World War I, when just one bullet manages to start an entire revolution. Let's talk about COVID-19 now. Here's the second thing you need to know to start your day. There's some good news. You're not going to see this in the mainstream media, folks. You're not going to see this reported on CNN. You won't see this on MSNBC. And chances are you won't see it on Fox News. because bad news continues to drive viewership. But here is actually some good news in the fight against COVID-19. And there's this discussion about the herd mentality. I'm sure you've heard about it. We're going to try to have Dr. Samadi on the show, a longtime friend, one of the top cancer doctors in the world, who is a good friend of mine. We're going to have him on the show, and we're going to try to get him on tomorrow if we can. But in the meantime, he did talk about this herd mentality and how we shouldn't be concerned about more spikes right now, because as more people are getting the antibodies and are immune, and if they have T-cell immunity, then it's not going to go population-wide. That the idea is that the more people that end up getting it, and as this virus goes through the population, we will start to beat this thing and start to see major decreases. Listen to Dr. Samadi on this herd mentality.
We are still in the first wave, and even though there are some spikes in different states, this is completely expected. More people are out there, more people are going to get this virus, more people are going to build antibodies, and through herd immunity, we're going to get through this. More testing results in more numbers. So overall, the numbers are going to continue to go up. That's not necessarily a bad news. The good news is that the number of deaths is actually going down, and we're able to take care of these patients.
So I know what the argument is on herd mentality. Some have said, well, it's been disproven because antibodies only last 3 weeks. But if you have T-cell immunity, then you might be protected overall. It won't have to go through the entire population. It will, might only have to go through a percentage of the population when we're able to get a handle on this. So I'm not a doctor, I don't purport to be, but when you listen to David Navarro, who is also from the World Health Organization, he said another lockdown would be terrible, that what we need to do is to identify those people that have it, contain those people, treat the disease, and to be smart with social distancing and masks, but to be very smart about not going under another lockdown. One of the big issues that they're now pointing to, and the difference between the 1918 Spanish flu and what we're currently experiencing, is in 1918 they had no air conditioner. And so what happened in 1918 is that everyone was out in the heat constantly. It was brutal. And heat was supposed to kill this thing. Well, the problem in Arizona is that no one goes out in the heat. Everyone's in air conditioning. And experts now agree that air conditioning has been a big cause of this thing spreading indoors through those, through the ventilation systems. And so that's where we're different than 1918. So again, this idea that the T-cell immunity, it doesn't have to spread through everyone, and through herd immunity could end up helping us. We're starting to see these numbers reflected in COVID cases across the country. I mean, look at the very latest on this. Remember how brown this whole map used to be just a short time ago? So look at Florida, down 23%. They have now reached in Florida 500,000 cases, so not good, but numbers are going down. Georgia as well, Tennessee, all of these in blue, all used to be brown, and some of them were dark brown just a few weeks ago. Oklahoma down. Texas, not terribly bad. They were really in the brown, dark brown a few days ago, or a few weeks ago, now just at plus 8%. But then out in the desert Southwest, New Mexico, down 32%, Arizona down, California down, Utah down, Idaho down, North Dakota down. So good news all around on this, but if you read some of the headlines, you'll see that there are now spikes in certain cities because the mainstream media wants to continue to push that. Now we'll see. We'll see if these doctors are right. I'm not taking one side or the other. I just listen to what the doctors say, and I'm making my decisions based on that. And I'm looking at this data right now from the COVID tracking project, which is the exact numbers that the White House uses. They call local state health departments. They get all of this information directly from the hospitals. So that's where they compile all of this data. These numbers also go right to the White House. So these numbers are improving, folks, which is good news. But we're not out of the woods on this yet, so don't count your chickens. Florida, Texas, California, though, areas that were hotspots are going down. So some good news there. Let's talk about, for all the investors out there, people that care about your dollar. Remember, this is a morning business show, and we've got to talk about the U.S. dollar, which is dropped to a 2-year low and has taken a huge punch to the stomach. So again, if you have your money in a bank account, in a U.S. savings account tied to the U.S. dollar, like at your local Wells Fargo or one of those banks, please start to think about transferring some of that money into real tangible assets like real estate, gold, silver, even crypto. Get it out of the US dollar. The US dollar is at a 2-year low. Stocks are also flat right now, or kind of stagnant, because they're trying to find some direction here on what's going to happen with this stimulus plan. But like Wall Street's always disconnected from Main Street. So don't pay attention to Wall Street. This is not a Wall Street show. But it's just to say that the US dollar is sagging big time. 2 years on fears that the recovery of the world's biggest economy was lagging behind other countries. We're seeing what was happening in other parts of Europe, Canada, rest of the world, and the US chugging along, way behind right now. So make sure you do not have your money in the US dollar. And Jerome Powell, this is another big story that we're following. What is going to happen at the Federal Reserve tied to mortgage rates? Could we be seeing an end to low mortgage rates? Well, Fed Chief Jerome Powell said at a news conference that the central bank was close to wrapping up a review of its policymaking strategy that began back in 2019. The results will be announced in the near future, Powell said. Now, if the Fed allows inflation to rise above its current 2% target, then it would put upward pressure on mortgage rates, because now investors who buy those fixed assets use inflation as the mainstay of what they're figuring out on the yield and what they're willing to accept. 2% is an important number for us to keep inflation at right now. And if that starts going up, that could be a big problem for where people want to put their money. And that could change the way that we see mortgage rates right now at an all-time low. So if you're thinking about buying a house, or you're thinking about selling a house, or you're thinking about refinancing your mortgage, or you think about getting a home equity line of credit to use the equity in your property right now, how many people watching right now have a home that have equity in your property? Remember, I always say you cannot eat equity. If you've got $100,000 of equity in your primary residence and you're just sitting on it, you need to get a home equity line of credit. You need to leverage that money and buy a rental property. Get some cash flow coming into your pocket, okay? We've got hundreds of videos here on the channel that can help you through that process. Plus, we launched our new real estate investor YouTube channel. We'll put it in the description below. That helps you step by step in that process, figure out what to do with that. But if you're sitting on $100,000 in equity in your primary residence, not doing anything with it, and these interest rates are this low, you need to get a home equity line of credit. You need to be able to take some of that equity and use that as a down payment on getting a duplex that'll cash flow $3,000 a month in cash flow. So turn that equity into cash flow. Make sure you're smart with your money, folks. You cannot eat equity. You might be sitting there saying, yeah, my house is appreciated. Great. But if the Fed chief starts to raise interest rates, or starts to, it goes up on the inflation rate above 2%, then that appreciation you've been sitting on may not look so good. So take advantage of this stuff, folks, okay? Be smart with your money. That's what this channel is all about. So that's on the Fed, the US dollar. Another big story we're following for you, the fourth thing that you need to know this morning. Boy, did Joe Biden make a huge mistake yesterday in this interview. Did you see this interview where he was asked about his cognitive testing? This much has been made about President Trump. Of course, President Trump admitted in that Chris Wallace interview that he took that test where he could spot an elephant or whatever. And there's been this back and forth between these guys, 77-year-old, 74-year-old, who has more dementia, I guess is the argument we're having among these guys right now. Ridiculous. But President Trump has been making fun of sleepy Joe Biden, calling him not fit for office. And so yesterday, Joe Biden was asked about taking that very same cognitive test, and boy, it did not go well. Ooh, cringe-worthy moment for Joe Biden. Take a watch.
Mr. Vice President, your opponent in this election, President Trump, has made your mental state a campaign topic. And when asked in June if you'd been tested for cognitive decline, you've responded that you're constantly tested in effect because you're in situations like this on the campaign trail. But please clarify specifically, have you taken a cognitive test?
No, I haven't taken a test. Why the hell would I take a test? Come on, man. That's like saying before you got in this program, if you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not, what do you think, huh? Are you a junkie?
What do you say to President Trump, who brags about his test and makes your mental state an issue for voters?
Well, if he can't figure out the difference between an elephant and a lion, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Did you watch that? Look, come on, man. I know you're trying to goad me, but I mean, I'm so forward looking to have an opportunity to sit with the president or stand with the president in debates. There can be plenty of time. And by the way, as I joke with him, you know, I shouldn't say it. I'm going to say something I probably shouldn't say. Anyway, I am very willing to let the American public judge my physical and mental my physical as well as my mental fitness, and to make a judgment about who I am.
Grover, what do you think about that? Want to judge his mental fitness? I mean, can you imagine if President Trump, let's just be totally fair here. I've been, you know me, I'm trying to be as fair as I can here. If President Trump had said the same thing to a black journalist, there would be nationwide outrage right now, right? Saying about taking cocaine as a junkie, really? There would be outrage. He'd be called upon to apologize. I hope Joe Biden apologizes for that remark. I hope he does, because it was outrageous. I mean, how are they even related? How are they even in the same camp? I'm asking you if you're taking a cognitive test, the same one that you've been making fun of President Trump for, the same one that Democrats have been vilifying him for during his Chris Wallace interview, have you taken the same test? It's a legitimate journalistic question. And for him to say, come on, man, and to put on that jokey Joe, come on, man, I'm a man of the people. It's like me asking you if you do cocaine before the show. Like, what are you, a junkie? It was brutal. Brutal. And, you know, this is why, when everyone wants to wonder why, like, they don't want to have Joe out doing interviews right now, this is why. Joe Lockhart, former White House, I think he was the press secretary. Joe Lockhart was a number of years ago. Back in the day, he's sort of a John Kerry guy. He's been around for quite a long time. I've interviewed Joe over the years many, many times. He came out with an opinion piece where he talked about how Joe Biden could still lose the election. The polling numbers are very high for Joe, but if he starts to get into this back and forth having to shoot down everything Trump does, he could lose this election. Of course he could. But I want you to pay attention to this Democratic spin right now. This is heavy, heavy Democratic spin. You know, again, this is why I'm an independent, folks, because I can see through all of this garbage. So Joe Lockhart comes out with this opinion piece and says that Joe could lose the election if he gets up and debates President Trump. That could be a mistake because he'll just be asked constantly to be volleying these ridiculous statements back over the net that Trump makes up. Because Trump makes up stuff nonstop, right? He's full of hot air. But if Joe has to get up there and volley that hot air back, he's just going to be on defense the whole time. We saw what happened during the 2016 campaign with Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush. They couldn't get a word in edgewise because they were constantly having to battle back his stuff. That's why he lost. That's why they lost. Same thing could happen to Joe Biden. It's the same thing that happened to Hillary Clinton. But listen to Joe Lockhart with this Democratic spin, and I'm going to come back and unspin it for you.
This is a president who, as I said in the article, is incapable of telling the truth. He spins these conspiracy theories out there, and up till now, most of those theories are broadcast by Fox News and, you know, on his Twitter feed. And, you know, most Americans don't see that. The debates are very different. This is the one thing, you know, now that we're not really going to have conventions where the public will tune in, 50, 60 million people. And they will see all of this nonsense from him. He will take the truth and destroy it. And Biden will be in the position of correcting him over and over and over again.
So that's the argument from Joe Lockhart. And honestly, that's pure Democratic spin right there. When I read this piece, I just sort of laughed out loud. Because the reason they don't want him to debate Donald Trump is not about him having to volley back the BS constantly, which there will be a lot of it, as we know, on a daily basis from Trump. But it's because he might say something like he just said in front of this journalist again. Something ridiculous and off color. I mean, there's a history of Joe Biden saying ridiculously, off color comments over the years. I remember back in the, mid '90s, or no, it was mid 2000s when he was talking about, have you ever been to a Dunkin' Donuts that was not owned by an Indian person? I mean, okay, but there's just like a laundry list of those types of comments. So right now, Democrats are just trying to keep, if they're smart, if Democrats were smart, they just would not let Joe out of the House. I mean, that's my opinion, but when he gets out there and he starts, making these comments to, come on, man, this is where you run into some serious trouble.
Specifically, have you taken a cognitive
No,
test?
I haven't taken a test. Why the hell would I take a test? Come on, man. That's like saying before you got in this program, if you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not, what do you think, huh? Are you a junkie?
What do you say?
Are you a junkie? It's nothing like that, Joe. I'm sorry. It's nothing like that. Okay. And the fifth thing that you need to know to start your day is this, and please warn anybody in your family that was thinking about doing this. Now 4 people have died from drinking hand sanitizer, and that's prompted the federal government to issue a formal warning about the dangers of drinking hand sanitizer. And they've alerted poison control centers across the nation to be on the lookout for cases of methanol toxicity after 4 people died and nearly a dozen became ill. Yes, from May 1st to June 30th, 15 people in Arizona and New Mexico were treated for poisoning after they swallowed this stuff. What's going on in Arizona and New Mexico? Come on, people in Arizona and New Mexico. Really? Come on, we're trying to make America look smart, right? This is not helping our cause when you're drinking hand sanitizer. Don't do it. Please, please don't do it. There are the 5 things that you need to know to start your day. Here's something else you need to know to start your day. We'd like you to support our sponsor. We can't do this show without our sponsors, and if you would like to get some free money right now, our friends at Webull are extending their big program to give you free stocks right now and some additional giveaways in the month of August. So you can sign up right now, totally free, and get some free money. Just go to morninginvest.com/Webull. You get 2 free stocks. You open the account for free, and then you deposit $100 into the account. You'll get those additional free stocks. And what's great about it is they're valued up to $1,400. You don't have to do anything else with the account. And that $100, you're not spending it. It just sits in the account, and then you can close it after you get your free stocks. And as these stocks continue to go up, you can see your money just going up, and you can cash it out anytime you want, but it's free money. So check them out. They support our show. They're a big supporter of our show. And like I said, we can't do this show without them. It enables us to do, have our graphics team build things, and I have to pay for a lot of stuff for this show and the bandwidth and the things we do here. So this really helps. So thank you so much for your support. And hey, it's free money, and it's great to check out. So we're going to talk about the stimulus now. In just a second, we're going to be deep diving that. But I do want to get some water first. Bleach is still better, someone says. Amy Beecroft. I don't know, man. I don't know. People want bleach. They want hand sanitizer. I don't know. Morning real estate crook mug. That'd be good. Did I miss the stimulus? No, you didn't yet. Not yet. Let me just scroll back here. We're going to get to that in just a second. So, all right, we just got to get my elements here pulled up, and we're going to get started in 1 second with our stimulus update in just a second. No, I am serious. Yeah, people want to know if this story was serious. Yes, it is. I mean, the fact that the federal government had to come out and issue a warning about this It tells you everything you need to know. Yeah, that seems like a good idea. Let's just drink some hand sanitizer. Yeah. That's right, folks. This, I think that's like Darwinism at its best, to be honest with you. I really do. Tracy Reed says, good morning, Clayton. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for your super chat. Biden, that was a horrible interview for Biden. He has been disrespectful to African Americans lately. I'm a registered Democrat, but lately I just don't know. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, look, there are third-party candidates out there. They don't get they don't get a lot of attention, and I'd like maybe to, have people joining us here on the show that are from different parties, that can shed some light on their positions. Come on, man. Come on, man. Don't be drinking hand sanitizer. Come on, man. Come on, man. Don't be drinking hand sanitizer. What's wrong with you? Come on, man.
Why the hell would I take a test? Come on, man.
Come on, man. Come on, man. What are you drinking hand sanitizer for? Really? Come on, man. All right, let's get to your stimulus news now. Here we go. First here. Oh, one more piece of news I wanted to get to. I forgot to get to it. We're going to be following this because in a few hours here, we're going to have some big news out of New York. Where is my notes on this? Yes. So we've got this big story that's going to be breaking here in about an hour and a half out of New York State. The New York State Attorney General, Letitia James, said that she's going to deliver a major national announcement on Thursday. The subject of the announcement is not clear, but last month James asked a federal judge to consider a possible inquiry into false statements from the Trump administration that of course led to the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office to retract arguments in defense of a policy to exclude New York from federal programs intended to expedite international travel. We don't know if it's going to be tied to that or something else. They've obviously been looking deeply into the Trump organization. So again, we don't know I don't want to speculate. But again, New York State Attorney General Letitia James said that she will have a major national announcement at 11:30 Eastern Time today. So keep your eye on that space. All right. Get my notes up here. All right, let's deep dive the stimulus now and the latest on the stimulus package out of Washington. So it seems like it is, one step forward, 3 steps back, and the two sides have yet to agree on a couple of key areas. There has been some movement. They have been able to have some concessions. We have heard from the White House that Democrats have given an inch, maybe not enough that they need to give. And Nancy Pelosi still has her red line. She was asked yesterday about what her red line on pricing is. Will she come down in numbers? And she says, no, it's still going to stay $3.4 trillion. That's the HEROES Act. That's our number, $3.4 trillion. That'll provide state and local government funding, money for evictions, money for rental assistance, money for landlords, money for heroes and frontline workers, hazard pay, etc., and help to those states that have been badly hurt right now. Republicans on the other side of it say no, that's way too high. Stephen Mnuchin said we're not going to get anywhere near close to that price. So there seems to be still a big loggerhead moment and logjam between these two sides. But there has been some movement. And one big issue for the Democrats is this post office thing. Now, according to the New York Times this morning, the post office issue is one of the big sticking points. Do you know about this? Yeah, because the head of the post office has been making all sorts of new regulations and cutbacks, and that has led to mail piling up in U.S. cities. How many of you watching right now, let me know in the comments below, have been waiting on certain things in the mail, and you're just having your have you been talking to your postal employees? They have baskets of mail that they haven't been able to deliver. Why? Cutbacks. Cutbacks, cutbacks, cutbacks. Right now, when everyone's relying on the post office and delivering things to our houses more than ever. So Chuck Schumer was not happy about it. He said that they met with the head of the post office yesterday, and this is a big sticking piece in the stimulus package because we have an election coming up, and there's going to be mail-in ballots like you've never seen before. Post office, you better get your act together. Of course, the head of the post office is a Trump fundraising friend and ally who got appointed to this position. So he's a big Trump guy, of course, and apparently got pretty heated during these discussions. Listen to Chuck Schumer on this.
Let me first say we did meet, as the Speaker mentioned, with the head of the Postal Service. It was heated discussion. We told him that elections are sacred and to do cutbacks at a time when the ballots, all ballots, have to be counted. You can't say, oh, we'll get 94% of them, is insufficient. We are demanding that the regulations they put in place, which cut employment and cut overtime, be rescinded, particularly because of COVID and because of the elections. We need those to vote, and we will advocate strongly for money so that they can hire all the people necessary, both overtime and new people, to make sure that every single ballot is counted. And that is a sine qua non for us.
So that's a red line, that make sure that every ballot gets counted. The post office should not be cut back right now. That's a big part of their stimulus red line right now, is making sure that they're taken care of. And we also saw that about face yesterday, as I mentioned here on the show, from President Trump, which I still can't believe. You know, I mean, I guess I can believe it, that he walked this idea back, that mail-in voting is, will lead to widespread fraud. Republicans have won elections because of mail-in votes. And so, GOP leaders out of Florida basically called the president and said, hey man, you got to stop slamming mail-in voting because we're going to lose this election. Mail-in voting is fine. There is no evidence of fraud in mail-in voting. So stop spreading this. So then he went out on Twitter yesterday and said, mail-in voting or absentee voting, whatever you want to call it, it's totally fine. Go get your absentee ballot right now. I mean, within 24 hours, he did a complete 180 on that position. Well, the post office is not going to be able to handle it. The New York Times this morning says that Mitch McConnell in these debates has been marginalized, and that's leading to this logjam right now, that that the senator is basically being pushed out, and it's a move of his own making, saying that he basically punted this discussions over to the White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin and Democrats. And he said in this press conference, well, I'm not marginalized. I'm still part of these discussions. He was asked about this. Chris Coons, who's a senator on the Democratic side, said that Mitch has been absent on these stimulus debates. And Mitch McConnell fired back and said, I'm right here, but he also admitted that he's not being part of the discussions, that he's sending it over to the White House, and he's waiting for them to bring it to him. Listen to Chris Coons attack the Senate Majority Leader, and then listen to his response.
It shouldn't have come to this, where you've got literally 30 million Americans who are relying on the additional unemployment insurance assistance from the federal government to get them through this very difficult time. We should have been able to come to a resolution at this point.
How do you respond?
Well, I am involved. I've been involved continuously. And Secretary of the Treasury and the President's Chief of Staff are briefing my colleagues on a daily basis. We're totally involved in this. The question is, can we work together to get an outcome? There are two things that are in trouble and need to be dealt with: unemployment and the PPP, the Popular Small Business Loan Program, both expiring.
Right.
We need to do a lot more than that. But that certainly creates a sense of urgency, and I haven't sensed the sense of urgency on the other side that I'd like to see, Mike, to actually get an outcome here.
Wait a minute, what? All right, we talked about Democratic spin on Joe Biden a few minutes ago. Let's talk about Republican spin right there from Mitch McConnell. I don't sense the urgency from the Democrats to get something passed. Really? Come on, man. Really? Come on, man.
Why the hell would I take a test? Come on, man.
Come on, man, really? Come on. Seriously, Democrats passed the HEROES Act. You might not like it. They passed it 2.5 months ago. It's been sitting there on your desk while you wanted to take a pause. How many videos, how many reports have I had here on the show where Mitch McConnell, we talked about Republicans, we said Secretary Mnuchin, we said Larry Kudlow, we said Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, all said we want to take a pause to see how it all is going to work out. They were hoping that those jobs numbers would be so favorable they would walk away from any kind of a stimulus. They were dead wrong. And we knew that a month and a half ago. So now you're criticizing the Democrats for a lack of urgency? You just took a vacation 2 weeks ago, senators. And your vacation is tomorrow, August 7th. You have a recess tomorrow, August 7th. Someone left me a comment, said, Clayton, you're totally wrong about their recess. It's not a vacation. They're going to go back and work really hard at their houses. That's what someone said in the comments. I nearly fell off my sofa last night when I read that. Yeah. Okay. I've been around politicians and politics for a long time. Okay. I've been a journalist for 20 years. You think they're going back to their office? Here's what I want you to try to do, okay? If you think that that's true, I've got some land I've got a bridge in Alaska I'd like to sell you. Here's what I want you to do. During this August recess, I want you to go to your local representative's office and see if they're in there. I want you to knock on their door and see if they're in there, or if it just says closed, gone fishing. We'll see. We'll see. Go to your local senator's office in your state and see if they're in there this August. See if they're working. Of course, if they're running for re-election, they're going to be campaigning, but that's not working for you. That's just raising money and doing fundraisers to try to stay in office. That's garbage talk, okay? Don't try to pass that on me by any stretch. So this idea, this garbage that, that Democrats haven't shown a sense of urgency on this, what they don't want to show, and I'm not speaking for them, but what they don't want is this watered down, slimmed down version where the only thing is covered is liability protection and an extension of PPP loans. They want money for state and local governments. They want to make sure unemployment insurance is continued for the $600 per week. These are all major parts of their plan that they are not budging on. And this is a mistake of their own doing. Republicans put themselves up against this deadline. Mitch McConnell put himself up against this deadline. Nancy Pelosi was asked about Mitch McConnell's absence, and she's been shocked, frankly, about where these negotiations have been going on. They've been going on at the White House instead of with the leadership in the Senate.
What's really curious about this, because this is different from any negotiation we've had before, because we're in the middle of a pandemic. People are dying. So there's an urgency that is different from before. And the pandemic has caused economic suffering of such a magnitude that cannot be reversed until we address the pandemic. So we're in a bit of a different kind of a dynamic. Secondly, we have a bill. We passed it nearly 3 months ago. They haven't passed anything. And as you've seen from the majority leader, Mr. McConnell, they don't have the votes. They have the votes for practically nothing. They haven't passed anything. They don't even have the votes within their own 51. In other words, I'm not talking about 60 votes. I'm saying what is it that they, from strength, can bring to the floor. Last week they brought something that was $200. Well, it was a non-starter, but even with that, it didn't have the full support of the Republicans in the United States Senate. So it's unlike other negotiations in terms of it's a matter of life and death, the lives of the American people, the livelihood of our families economically, and the life of our democracy.
So where's Mitch on this? He doesn't even have the support in his own caucus, and that's probably why he's punted it to the White House. He was asked in a separate interview yesterday, Mitch McConnell was, that if the president showed leadership in certain areas on certain parts of this, could he convince his 20 or so Republicans who aren't going to vote for anything to move forward with a bill? He said it's likely, we don't know, he didn't really have an answer. So this headline is pretty accurate from in the New York Times today. In stimulus talks, McConnell is outside the room and in a tight spot. And a tight spot of his own making, I might point out. This was all in his hands. He said in response to Nancy Pelosi, he responded and fired back. He said, every decision I make about this sort of thing is entirely calculated. It eliminates sitting there and having to listen to Pelosi and Schumer's talking points, which gets in the way of serious discussions. He said, Meadows and Mnuchin are not hiding the ball from me, and I'm not hiding the ball from my colleagues. So bottom line on this, folks, is that even if Congress reaches a deal by Friday, tomorrow, which would be a miracle, we're going to be watching it step by step today, and I'll bring you any updates that we have. That doesn't mean it will immediately become law. A second stimulus package requires the president's signature, of course, and then that could take a few days to be signed next week. But Secretary Mnuchin says that we did try to agree to set a timeline. We're going to try to reach an overall agreement. The White House wants an agreement by tomorrow, and to see if they can pass this legislation. Now, another story that we are following is President Trump's side of this, and what happens if he decides to pull the trigger himself. There is reporting this morning from the Washington Post that the president could try to get CARES Act money from the first CARES Act that's left over, and is trying to pull it together if he could use it in some sort of executive action where he would suspend payroll taxes, put in place an eviction moratorium, that he might try to do this unilaterally without Congress. Maybe he's listening to Stephen Moore. Remember, we played Stephen Moore's clip yesterday where Stephen said, I've encouraged the president, just go around Congress. Pass a payroll tax moratorium so no payroll taxes are collected. You know, he said, I've encouraged him. Maybe go and do an eviction moratorium. That would show real leadership from the president. Will he do it? What do you think, Grover? Will he do it? I don't know. Apparently they're sniffing around asking about some CARES Act money and whether or not they're going to find some, and if there's any left over that they could pull together and use. So again, the White House wants a bill tomorrow. I don't know that we're going to see that. I would be stunned if we have a bill by tomorrow, as far apart as they are right now. I mean, they're trillions of dollars still far apart. Of course, some of the big sticking points are making sure that the post office has funding so that people can get their mail. I'm just reading through your comments right now. You're all telling me that no, we haven't gotten our mail. You're waiting on mail right now. It's ridiculous. Also, unemployment benefits, making sure that they do agree to this $600. Mitch McConnell said yesterday that he's open and prepared to support a $600 extension, but that's not ironed out yet. The only area they seem to agree on right now is the $1,200 stimulus checks. And Republicans still want that liability insurance or that protection for businesses. And Democrats want $1 trillion for state and local governments, and that includes landlord assistance as well as rental assistance so people don't get thrown out on the street. I'm seeing so many of you also write and let me know that you're getting eviction notices like crazy. So here we go. I mean, this is where we're at on this debate right now. Tomorrow, here are some of the things we're going to be watching for you tomorrow on tomorrow's show. Of course, tomorrow is the jobs report, folks. So we'll have the jobs report numbers before we go live on tomorrow's show. So be sure you're here tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern time. We're going to be looking at this big jobs report number because even if it is a big number, it's becoming clear that hiring did slow and even likely reversed its course in July. And real-time indicators suggest the employment situation got worse into August. Of course, driving the news, payroll processor ADP, you know, they're the ones that do all the payroll paychecks. They showed private companies added 167,000 jobs last month. That's great, but it's well below the 1.2 million that economists expected. And it's far below what we added in June when everyone was throwing a party and celebrating those jobs numbers in June at 4.8 million jobs added. So way, way below all of that. So that's where we are right now on the stimulus front. What about your pumpkin spice latte? How many of you are, so this, we're talking about this in the pre-show. Business Insider put this out. The pumpkin spice latte launch dates at Starbucks and how early they've been released. I always say that this is an indicator of fall for me, is when they release this and football is on television. Who in the world thinks that anything pumpkin should be released in August? Give me a break. Look, in 2014, they released it on August 26th, August 27th last year. I say wait until September. You know, when we start seeing pumpkins, when we start seeing Halloween decorations, who wants to drink a hot, sugary beverage in August? A hot, sugary dairy drink in August. Ugh. No way. Come on, man. You know? Come on, man.
Come on, man. That's like saying you, before you got in this program, if you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not, what do you think, huh?
Oh, man. Let's check in on the chat. You know, I just want to say one thing real quick. Thank you so much for subscribing to our show. Thank you for making us a part of your morning every morning. Grover and I can't thank you enough for making us a part of your show every morning. We really appreciate it. It means the world to us. Thank you for smashing that like button as well. And also subscribing to our morning newsletter. We do this for free every morning, so it'll be delivered right to your inbox first thing in the morning. You just need to go to morninginvest.com. You sign up. It'll be delivered to your inbox for free. You can read it in about 5 minutes. Gives you the news you can use, stuff that we might not necessarily be able to cover here on the show. We also have our News by the Numbers, one of my favorite segments. By the way, we're going to be, how many of you would like to see the News by the Numbers segment built into the show here? It's one of the things we're talking about with our graphics team. So let me know if you'd like to see that. But thank you so much for subscribing and making us a part of your morning. We really appreciate it. We're here 9 a.m. Eastern every morning. Thank you, folks. Thank you for your super chat, Mellow Mesh. Thank you so much. I was working hard, Mellow. Thank you. You got to give it to her, Mellow says. Nancy Pelosi is definitely a fighter, and if she gets what she wants, it's a chance that she could run for president. I'm just saying. I don't know. You know, certain people are better being senators and negotiators and behind the scenes. I think she would be, I don't know. There's too much hatred of her among the right that she would just be, I think she'd be crushed. I think she's such a polarizing figure among the right, among conservatives, that there's no way. Thank you, guys. Someone wants to recap. I actually have a conference call in about 5 minutes. But let me just give you a little quick recap if I can. Okay, let me just give you a quick recap on the stimulus if you joined us late. The two sides on the stimulus plan right now have yet to agree on funding of unemployment benefits. One of the big sticking points right now is U.S. Postal Service. And the U.S. Postal Service funding right now, of course, the head of the U.S. Postal Service is a Trump fundraiser who got that job. LaJoy is his name. And we just saw from a postal employee here in our chat that says, I work at the post office, and LaJoy does not care about the post office. LaJoy is a joke. They've been slashing budget, slashing hours, and mail is piling up. Guess what's going to happen come Election Day when there's millions and millions of absentee ballots? I mean, is this an effort to try to scare people from voting by cutting the post office? So Chuck Schumer was not having that. He said in their negotiations, one of the things that he wanted to make sure was that they spoke to the post office, the head of the post office, and he said it got pretty heated. Listen to Chuck Schumer and his debates. They said this is one of their big stimulus discussions right now. The post office has got to have funding. That's one of our red lines.
Needs to be seen. I yield to it.
Let me first say we did meet, as the speaker mentioned, with the head of the Postal Service. It was heated discussion. We told him that elections are sacred and to do cutbacks at a time when all ballots have to be counted. You can't say, oh, we'll get 94% of them, is insufficient. We are demanding that the regulations they put in place, which cut employment and cut overtime be rescinded, particularly because of COVID and because of the elections. We need those to vote, and we will advocate strongly for money so that they can hire all the people necessary, both overtime and new people, to make sure that every single ballot is counted.
There you go. So if you're a postal employee, I saw someone just telling me they're at the post office now watching. So thank you so much. Someone's maybe standing in line at the post office, unfortunately, or waiting to get their mail because God knows they've been slammed right now thanks to all these cutbacks. So we need to make sure that the Postal Service is taken care of. But right now, they're still at loggerheads on the stimulus. There's back and forth divisions right now over how much this bill should be. One of the big sticking points is the price tag. Nancy Pelosi, when asked, what price will you be willing to come down to? What's your price bottom line? And she said, $3.4 trillion, which is exactly how much the HEROES Act is that she passed 3 months ago. She hasn't changed. She's not moving the budget on that price. So we'll see. We'll see where everything shakes out. But right now, the front page of the New York Times has Mitch McConnell being marginalized in this whole process. It says that he is out of the loop, and he purposefully did it this way. He sort of punted it over to the White House so that Mark Meadows and Steven Mnuchin are basically doing the bulk of the negotiating right now. And we don't know much more than that. I mean, they're trying to get a framework together by tomorrow, folks. Tomorrow. That's when the White House wants this thing done. And there's rumors this morning that the White House may try to take things into its own hands by executive order and suspending payroll taxes, trying to put in some sort of eviction moratorium on its own if they could. So they're apparently examining right now, according to the Washington Post, they're apparently examining their legal authority to do those things, to suspend payroll taxes as an executive order, to also stop evictions as an executive order. Apparently all of those things are on the table right now, and they're examining those things. So why, but you're waiting to the last minute to do this? So President Trump is going to try to show some leadership here in the 11th hour? Actually, it's not the 11th hour, it's 3 in the morning. It's well past the midnight cutoff for this. As unemployment benefits ran out last week, no extension there. People are being evicted, no extension there. The post office can't get mail out. Great leadership all around. Great leadership. It's been a disaster. So we'll keep our eye on this tomorrow. Tomorrow is the jobs numbers, folks. We're going to be watching very closely what the jobs numbers from July look like. They'll be released at 8:30 Eastern time tomorrow. We'll bring it to you live right here on the show tomorrow. As always, Grover and I will be here watching all of that and more. So you can count on that. And I want you to have a great day, everyone. And if there's one thing I want you to remember, it's always to remember this.
Come on, man. That's like saying before you got in this program, if you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not, what do you think, huh? Are you a junkie?
What do you say?
I'll leave you with that. I don't want anyone to say I'm not an equal opportunity offender. The day earlier we had that Trump interview that I've watched now 7 times. I've watched this one almost as much. So there you go, everyone. That's your stimulus update. That's your economic news update here on Morning Invest, the only morning business show for real Americans, not the Wall Street types. Much love to all of you, and we will see you back here once again tomorrow morning. Much love. Take care, everyone.